I've been told that I have an unusually large working knowledge of romantic comedies and romances. In my opinion, it's mostly due to the overall pop culture obsession I have rather than a love for rom-coms. Because let's face it, most rom-coms are the worst. And it's not just the modern ones that are bad, although there's a wealth of egregious chick flickage out there these days. There are horrific romantic films throughout the history of cinema, which leads us to the beginning of my journey through romantic space and time, letting films know that that's not romantic. However, I'm beginning my tour of romantic films with something good, just to ease into the process. And because if you don't know what's good, how can you really know what's awful? Today, let's talk about all the ways It Happened One Night is awesome and works as a romantic comedy. Number 1. A setup with a good payoff. It doesn't matter if a setup is really silly or somewhat forced or just K-drama levels of ridiculous. It all depends on if that drama and conflict create a good reason for character development and for the characters to interact. It also provides a good source of comedy. In It Happened One Night, the setup is that a rich young woman on the run is coerced into traveling with a journalist who wants a good story. The setup is revealed fairly quickly so that the big conflict that needs to be resolved before they can get together isn't that their relationship is based on lies, but that they're kind of getting over their respective egos and pride. This is ample conflict for two strong personalities to butt heads, learn to respect each other, and bond along their journey. Number 2, decent characters with actual personality. A decent setup is nothing if the characters created are no good and poorly developed. In this film, we're first introduced to Ellie Andrews, a spoiled child of a rich man who's not much to do but be a socialite. Even though she's a legal adult, her father still tries to limit her actions, including her unconsummated marriage to King Wesley, who's this other rich dude who, I don't know, has a terrible mustache and flies things. Not really sure what his appeal is, but it's there. Ellie's stubbornness and desire to be free from her father's reach and her need for independence is established quickly and early from the moment that she dives off a boat to seek freedom. Although limited in independent living, she has an admirable amount of drive and some reticent cleverness that helps her initially escape her father's and her father's random hired men eye. Peter Warren is introduced later at a bus station, giving his boss a talking to at a phone booth. He's drunk and being celebrated by other inebriated men who celebrate his working man's fight. His pride shows through as he pretends to have worn his boss down, although his boss is really just hung up and ignored him.
Changing your tune, eh? You're a little late with your apologies. I wouldn't go back to work for you if you begged me on your hands and knees. And I hope this will be a lesson to you.
We realize that he's not a man to be trifled with as soon as he gets on the bus. He gives some attitude both to the bus driver and to Ellie the first time they meet. And with a combination of charm and ripping off other people's lines, he kind of wins us over in the process.
Oh, yeah? Now, that's a brilliant answer. Why didn't I think of it? Our conversation could have been over long ago. Oh, yeah? If you keep that up, we're not going to get anywhere. Oh, yeah? You got me. Yeah!
Peter also pretty clearly has some life experience and instinct that he's learned to follow in order to get a good story.
Have you any idea I'd stand for this?
Hey, now, wait a minute. Let's get this straightened out right now. If you're nursing any silly notion that I'm interested in you, forget it. You're just a headline to me.
We also realize early on that he has a good heart, helping even a brat with her stolen luggage. It takes about the first 5 to 10 minutes to understand who these people are and what kind of thing would piss them off. That way, when they meet, their characters are ready to be in conflict and to amuse us.
I beg your pardon?
Now listen, I put up a stiff fight for that seat. So if it's just the same to you, scram.
Driver, Are these seats reserved?
No, first come, first served.
Thank you.
Hey, driver. These seats accommodate 2 people, don't they? Well, maybe they do and maybe they don't. Thank you. Move over. This is a maybe they do.
Number 3, believable conflict. So, like I mentioned before, even though in It Happened One Night, the setup is pretty ridiculous, as long as the conflict and drama that comes out of it makes sense, I'll totally buy it. So what are the reasons that these characters in this film are in conflict? For one, Ellie is already married, albeit barely, from how easy it seems to be able to get an annulment at the end. Then we have the fact that Ellie thinks Peter is arrogant and Peter thinks Ellie is a brat. There's also a lot of class differences where Ellie's rich mindset is not conducive to cheap travel, and Peter knows how to budget.
You had $4 last night. How do you expect to get to New York at the rate you're going?
That's none of your business.
You're on a budget from now on.
For just a minute,
Shut
you
up.
can't.
Number 4, chemistry. What really makes a romance work is the chemistry between the 2 leads, which for some reason is often hard to find in romantic films. However, It Happened One Night has a magical combination of Claudette Colbert and Clark Gable's witty delivery, in addition to some Frank Capra schmaltz that really seals the deal. Even when these 2 characters are fighting, they still have good chemistry.
I wish you'd stop being playful.
Oh, so sorry. Sorry. You know, this is the first time in years I've ridden piggyback.
This isn't piggyback.
Of course it is.
You're crazy.
I remember distinctly my father taking me for a piggyback ride.
And he carried you like this, I suppose?
Yes.
Your father didn't know beans about piggyback riding.
My uncle, mother's brother, has 4 children, and I've seen them ride piggyback.
I bet there isn't a good piggyback rider in your whole family. I never knew a rich man yet who could piggyback ride.
You're prejudiced.
Then there's the contraband that is sharing an auto camp room, separated only by a rope and blanket. Nothing like creating a forced together moment and forcing intimacy. It also creates a chance for us to see Clark Gable's upper chest, which I'm not complaining about.
You know, I once knew a man who kept his hat on until he was completely undressed. Yeah, now he made a picture. Years later, his secret came out. He wore a toupee. Yeah. You know, I have a method all my own. If you'll notice, the coat came first, then the tie, then the shirt.
It seems to work in this film, and they kind of force the issue of physical attraction early on.
I'm different. I go for the shoes next. First the right, then the left. After that, it's every man for himself.
There's also that moment where they almost kiss and I almost die because they should so make out already. Because at that point, their chemistry is so well established, you want them to get together. In addition to this, their chemistry shines through when they have these less scripted seeming moments. Anytime that they forget themselves and their egos and they have to work together to fix a problem at hand.
You weren't bad jumping in like that. You've got a brain, haven't you?
Oh, well, you're not so bad yourself.
You know, we could start a 2-people stock company. Things get tough, we'll play the small town auditorium. We'll call this one The Great Deception.
Oh, what about Cinderella or a real hot love story?
Oh, no, that's too mushy.
Oh, I like mushy. You got a toothpick?
What's the matter?
A hay in my teeth.
No, I haven't got a toothpick. Here, I got a penknife, though. You have to hold still.
Oh, be careful.
All right. Where is it?
In the middle.
The middle? All right, now hold still. Real still. All right. There. Get it?
Thanks.
Hey, you should have swallowed that. You're not going to have any breakfast, you know.
You didn't even rub it in.
It should be noted too that the attraction between them seems to grow organically. It's not love at first sight, and they have to earn each other's respect, caring, and banter. And it's not just one-sided. Both of them don't really like each other at the beginning and learn to really like each other and love each other as the film goes on. Number 5. There are also great moments in vulnerability. Ellie is pretty vulnerable early on. She's on her own for the first time and she has some of her stuff stolen. She's trying to navigate public transit and she has little money for the first time in her life as well. Peter also gets to grow a vulnerable side as some of his plots to make their travel more efficient fall through.
I don't think I'll write that book after all.
Yeah, think of all the fun you had, though.
Also, towards the end, he shows that he has a little romantic side, despite his cynicism. He has a hard exterior, but he reveals that he has a marshmallowy center. It has to be earned towards the end of the film, but when it's there, it's really endearing.
Oh, for heaven's sake, Joe, stop being an editor for a minute. Listen, we've known each other a long time. Now, you ought to know when I'm serious. This is on the level. I met her on a bus coming from Miami. I've been with her every minute. I'm in love with her, Joe. Well, now, listen, pal, you gotta get me this money now, quick. Minutes count. She's waiting for me in an auto camp just outside Philadelphia. I gotta get right back. You see, she doesn't even know I'm gone. Well, you know, a guy can't propose to a gal without a cent in the world, can he?
Which also leads to Ellie's very vulnerable moment when she declares her love for him.
Take me to your island. I want to do all those things you talked about.
You'd better go back to your bed.
I love you. Nothing else matters.
Number 6. There's a plot outside of the two characters getting together, and this film does a pretty good job of sticking to it. There's nothing more boring than a romantic comedy or a romance film than having the basic plot just be these two getting together. It has to be a major part of the film to be counted as a romance film. Otherwise, we'd count every crappy romance subplot in every action movie as a romance. But in It Happened One Night, they stick to the plot of a road trip. Ellie has to make it back to King Wesley, and she's taken a road trip, more or less, to get there. So they have lots of practical things to do. They have to take care of train tickets, budget, hitchhike, find other means of travel, and take care of crying kids on the way. It also seems to help that this film is just as much about Ellie Andrews learning to grow up and how her actions affect others as much as the romance.
I can't walk out on King now. It would make us all look so ridiculous. Anyway, what difference does it make? I'll never see Peter again.
Final point. There you have it. My opinion on one of the best romantic comedies, and frankly, one of the best movies ever made. It Happened One Night acts as a benchmark I judge other romances to, because I know how good they can be. It might be an unfair comparison, but I'm sick of crappy rom-coms that only appeal to teenage white girls who don't know any better. It shouldn't be too much to ask for good characters and actually funny moments that don't result in pratfalls. Comedy, especially comedies made for a female demographic, shouldn't have to be terrible by default. Which is why I'm starting this project, because laughing about ridiculous things is always better than rolling my eyes in a movie theater alone.
Do you love her?
A normal human being couldn't live under the same roof with her without going nutty. She's my idea of nothing.
I asked you a simple question. Do you love her?
Yes! But don't hold that against me. I'm a little screwy myself.